Hi, this is Jesse Brisnine. I believe that it is possible to live an extraordinary life after loss, and to do that, one must first choose to heal. This podcast is focused on sharing with you inspiring stories, tangible tools, and life strategies to help you heal from your loss. Welcome back, everybody, to another Moving Forward moment. And today, we are lucky enough to have Marie here joining us. And Marie has a fitness background, personal trainer. She's done competitions, and she's also in the Army Reserve. So Marie, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your service. It's a pleasure to have you here.
My pleasure, Jesse. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're so welcome. So we've been talking quite a bit off camera before we even get started. I feel like we're old friends now, but you'll bring everybody up to speed a little bit about what brings you here today.
Well, as I mentioned to you earlier, when I came into the group, I kind of found myself asking the question, do I really belong to this group? Because I hear and I saw a lot of people talking about death. They saw, they lost a loved one. And I think we all have lost a loved one. I think for me, what brought me to this group is the loss of a relationship. So I'm going through a divorce right now, and it has been pretty difficult. But the more I read, I feel that any loss is difficult, and we all deal with it in a different way. At the beginning, as I told you, it was somebody said to me, "Oh, going through a divorce is, it's like when somebody dies." And I thought they were crazy. I said, there is no way, because I felt the loss of someone die before. And fast forward, almost a year later, they're right. They were right, because it is very difficult, especially they said, when somebody dies, you grieve them, you cry, you're sad, you're angry, you're asking these questions, why? But that person is gone. When it comes to divorce, same thing. You're grieving, you're sad, you're angry, you're depressed, you're all these emotions, but that person's still there.
Yes.
So you get to see them, and so I think that's what's the difference. But it's how we deal with it that gets us through it.
I'm so grateful, Marie, that you're here and you're talking about this, because for a few reasons. Number one, an end of a relationship is very similar to a death. There's an end, there's a finality with it, and oftentimes what makes a relationship so challenging is because there's always that I wonder. We get these things after loss, a death, where there's the what ifs, I should have, I would have, I could have, and the permanence of death almost forces some form of acceptance onto us of it.
Yes.
But with relationship, if we have any of those questions kind of percolating around, they could go on indefinitely. It could go on for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and so on, because especially if the person's a presence in our life, I think in that time initially after, there's with one of the things that we may not have to wrestle with death that we do in a relationship is that feeling of being alone, the feeling of will I ever be enough again?
Yes.
The feeling of, and that's not to say that people who've lost a longtime spouse, they don't have to fight with being alone, but if they had a loving relationship, they would know they were loved. If we end in a relationship, most relationships ends because of an absence of love. And the two biggest universal fears shared from all humankind, all 7 billion of us, are am I enough and am I lovable? Right? Well, you have a relationship, that's usually the most vulnerable place we are in, the I'm enough, am I vulnerable? And all of a sudden it ends not because of the permanence of death, but because of the choice of divorce or separation.
Yes.
That can bring those things up. And fear is the biggest thing that holds us back from doing so many things in our life. And now we have to confront those fears and live with them and face them. And it can be as derailing as a permanent loss of a death. So I really am so grateful for you being here and opening up and sharing it, because it's an important thing to talk about. And people who have lost loved ones from death, a lot of them may have still been struggling or have pain going from ending of relationships, or people who have had relationships end and have that pain that they haven't healed are maybe wrestling with now the death of a loved one, and they haven't been able to articulate some of the emotional pain from the end of a relationship. Because you know what, when you're talking about a relationship and somebody dying, our way we've been taught is, well, we should kind of put this, maybe it's not as important, it's not deemed as significant. And
Exactly.
what happens is people suffer in silence because nobody's willing to talk about it. So thank you so much for being that person to talk about it.
My pleasure.
I can only imagine there's been a lot of struggles. You and I talked a little bit off camera about, you know, what advice people were saying, what they were saying, what you were going through. What do you feel has been the biggest struggle for you in dealing with your loss?
I think it's letting go and accepting it has probably been the hardest. I will tell you, you know, I think at the beginning, just with anything, you find yourself lost. Like, what's going to happen? What's my future going to look like? Am I ever going to find love again? You know, how can I live without this person? You know, someone that you thought was the love of your life, your best friend, your everything. And for many, many months, I mean, it was very difficult. And I just didn't picture myself getting through it. And not that I'm there already, but it's gotten a lot easier because one, I think it comes down to knowing your worth. Like
Yes.
what do you deserve? Do you deserve to be treated miserably? Do you deserve to not be loved? Or do you deserve to be happy and have a life full of love and respected? I think it all comes down to respect, you know. And so I think it's for me it was the letting go and realizing who I am and what I'm worth. And just because somebody said to me one day, just because you are not good enough for him, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be good enough for someone else.
Yes.
And that was probably what I needed to hear because, you know, I'm not perfect. No one is, but I tried my best. And I think just that comment that that person said to me, I said, you're right. You know, you are right. I do deserve to be happy. And if there is love for me somewhere in the future, that I wouldn't say this 5 months ago, but that person's going to be very lucky to have me in their life.
That's awesome. You know, something you said I think is so important about being good enough for somebody else. One of the things I've experienced with working with people in this space and people outside of the space in general is that going back to those two universal fears, right? Am I enough? Am I lovable? After a loss, whether it's a death, an end of a relationship, we have to confront that in a lot of ways. Sometimes people who have been in a long-term relationship, they've been with the same person 30, 40 years, love of their life. They'll, you know, part of their decision-making processes is I'll never love again. I'll never be with somebody again. I'll never, right?
Yes.
Compounds the pain when we start to add in I never. Because we're basically saying, okay, here's this thing I love that brought me so much joy and fulfillment in my life, and now it's done. I'm never going to allow myself to have it again, even though I could be living 20, 30, 40 more years, but I'm going to say I never.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have a fitness background, so you can appreciate when, you know, a client would come in and say they wanted to lose weight. And if you were to tell them, oh, you can never have ice cream again, and they love ice cream, well, see, I'm going to go find the trainer that's going to let me have ice cream at some point.
Exactly.
And so I think what's really crucial with this, and I want to make sure that we emphasize this point here, is we can all be enough for someone else. But what's so important after a loss or while you're going through a loss is to first be enough for yourself. Be
Yes.
enough for yourself. And then when you allow yourself to be enough for yourself, you can find a space to share and be enough for someone else, whether it's romantically, whether it's just as friends, whether it's as colleagues, whatever it is. And you can still have emotional experiences you had before, love, joy, happiness. It doesn't mean that you're ever going to replicate the relationship that you had before.
Yes.
You're never going to replicate the relationship. You're never going to have replicate the relationship you had with your ex, nor should you, because that relationship was special and unique of itself.
Yes.
whether it was a 1 month relationship, whether it was a 13-year relationship, whether it was a 38-year relationship. But what you still can have, and I talk about this too, is loss. When we lose someone, it's not the end of the story. It's not the end of your story. It's the start of a new chapter. It's the
Yes.
end of one chapter, but it's a start. It can be the start of a new one. And the new one shouldn't be trying to repeat the old one, because when we do, we're always doing this comparison. Well, he would have done this. She would have done that. When we allow ourselves first to be enough for ourselves, we can say, okay, I am going on this new chapter and I still want to experience love, joy, happiness, and fulfillment in my life. And it doesn't mean I'm replacing them. It doesn't mean I'm making them less significant in how they were in your life. Your ex is going to always and forever be one of the most significant people in your life.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't mean that they have to be the role and wear the same hat they always wore before in your life,
Mm-hmm.
but you'll still have that significance. And what a beautiful gift they can give you is the gift of introspection, where you look inside of yourself and say, what's most important for Marie right now? What does she want? What makes me enough for me, so then I can be enough for someone else?
Yes, exactly. And you're absolutely right, because I think we find ourselves asking that question, like, what could I have done differently?
Yeah.
What should I have, you know, done, cleaned the house more? Should I, all these
Yeah.
things that you think about, and you're like, you know what? When somebody else is not happy, you cannot change who they are. Only they can change themselves.
Yes.
And that's where I found myself like, you know what? Now it's time to take care of Marie, and obviously my children, because my children mean the world to me.
Yes.
But it's time to take care of Marie. But even then, if Marie is not happy, then nothing that's in front of her is going to look good in my eyes. I'm not going to be able to look at that and be like, oh, this I'm happy with this. No, I have to be truly happy with myself. And like you said, it's not so much about it, it is happiness, but it's enough in your worth. And I think I will tell you, um, I think I didn't realize who I was. I didn't realize my worth. You know, because I think it really affected me. I didn't think that I was good enough, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
especially the hardest part is when they leave you for someone else. It's like, what does she have that I don't have?
Yep.
And so, and at that moment, I said, you know what? I am me. I am unique. I am beautiful. I am strong. And comes down to, if I wasn't good enough for him, I will one day be good enough for someone else. And
You
so
said something else, Marie, in there that's such an important piece I want to circle back around to. You have 2 kids, 3 kids?
I have two, an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old.
11-year-old and 12-year-old. So many people face loss, whether it's the end of a relationship, the death of a loved one, and they have children. Your children's ability to cope is going to largely be influenced on how well you take care of you.
Yes.
They see mom and dad struggling, it's going to make it harder for them. They may put on a tough upper lip to try to be the strong one for you, which is why it's so important to take care of yourself and nurture yourself during this time, to figure
Mm-hmm.
out what it is that makes you enough for you, to figure out what you need to do to love yourself. It doesn't mean that you're ignoring the pain, you're mourning the loss, as everybody should. But remember that there's life that's going on around you, and there's life that's still looking up to you, and it is this massive sponge that's going to soak everything in. And so if they learn at the time of adversity that the thing you have to do is just decide, okay, there's no more, I'll never be happy, I'll never be this again, think of the message that they're going to take into life going forward. But if they can look at you and see you finding and making a decision saying, okay, I'm in this horrible place and it hurts like hell right now, but I'm committed to being enough for me. I'm committed to loving myself enough. I'm committed to loving the person before me enough, the relationship, the person who I lost, to really take the best of that
Mm-hmm.
and figure out what do I want more of going forward. And seeing and allowing that be a beacon of light. It's kind of the breadcrumbs of Hansel and Gretel for them to follow later on, but have it fall to a place where it can be really utopian for them in the future, in the sense of it can lead to more fulfilling relationships with them, better ability to cope and manage challenges in life, because you're always going to be their first example. And
Yes.
it's wonderful to hear that you have kids at such an impressionable time that they can see their mom being strong and committed to being enough for herself going forward, because it's going to be a wonderful example for them too.
Yes. And that's one of the things too, though, because I have, my son's 11, my daughter is 12. And
Mm-hmm.
I think for me is teaching them, that anything that you go through in life, you're going to be okay. You're going to be fine. And one of the things that I was thinking, so that I don't forget, is I think what's really important when it comes down to a loss of a relationship, is forgiveness.
Yes.
Because I think for a while, I was put through a lot with my ex, many affairs that I found out about, and it's wrong, and I was so hurt, and I didn't allow, this one thing though, I didn't allow hatred to enter my heart, because I felt that if I allowed hatred to enter my heart, he was not doomed, I was doomed,
Yes.
because it was the hatred in my heart. And I think as soon as this happened, I said, I need to be able to fully say, I forgive you, so that I could be happy with me and I can move on with my life. Because if you don't forgive, your life's going to be miserable.
Yep.
And I think for me, it was, I do, we all make mistakes. We all go through life doing things that we shouldn't do. And that's what I teach my kids. I said, look, you have a path. We're all given this path. Is you either choose to go on the right path or deviate and go to the left or to the right. It's your choice, but you cannot blame anyone for that choice that you made. And
Yes.
so, so there's where I bring the choice and the forgiveness. But I think for me, it wasn't hard, but it was like, I have to be able to forgive him so that I can move on and be the person that I was meant to be.
Yes. I love that you said that forgiveness is always a choice. And if we don't forgive, it's kind of like voluntarily saying, okay, I'm going to carry around this steaming pile of dog shit with me for the rest of my life. And every day I'm going to spoon a little bit, sniff it and eat it. So
Yes.
really
Exactly.
what you're doing is you're ingesting that nastiness into your life by choice every single day when you don't have to. You can scoop it up. It might smell, it might bite a little bit at first, but you can throw it away and move on and leave it behind. I'm so glad you said that. I've often found, Marie, that for people when they're going through the roller coaster of emotions after loss, and especially when they're on the down part, there's a moment of decision for them when they decide, you know what, I have to make a change here. Something has to be different. Did you have that moment? And if you did, what was that moment for you?
I did. I think I actually had that moment back in February. And I'll tell you, so I went to this program that is offered through it's not the military, but it's a faith-based, it was a weekend program. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say the name.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, please.
Okay. It's called Mighty Oaks.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, going through this program really changed my life, because not only it's a veteran-based program. I went there because I wanted to learn about PTSD. So one of the reasons my ex left was because he said he was dealing with PTSD. And I wanted to understand it. I wanted to know what it was like what can I do to help him? I wanted to fix this relationship. I wanted to give it one last chance. So I showed up to this program, and I remember sitting there, and her name is Kathy. She stood up there and she said, ladies, I know that you're here because you want to learn how to fix your husband. You want to learn about PTSD. You want to learn what you could do. You're not here for that. You are here for you. And I think at that moment is where I went there, and you know how you said the roller coaster?
Yep.
I think the roller coaster took me deep down, and I didn't think I could get out of there.
Uh-huh.
But when she said that, it was like something a light turned on inside me. And she was right, because I wasn't there for him. I was there for myself.
That's awesome.
I think I drove out of there. It was in this beautiful ranch, by the way. It's beautiful. I drove out of there, and it was the old Marie. She stayed out there somewhere.
That's awesome.
And so when like I said, when I came back up, it's like that roller coaster. I'm still like high up there. I hope and I pray that I never have to come back down, because being down there is very, very, very hard. And I do not wish that upon anyone. And I hope that if anybody is down there, you know, to find help, you know, reach out to someone, because
Yes.
it's really hard. And we do, I think sometimes people say, well, I will tell you, I was really embarrassed when this happened, because how can I tell people that my husband left me? You know, how can I, even with my family, you know, divorce was not like, it's not part of who we are. And I was embarrassed. I was like, how can I tell them this? How can I say, oh, I'm going to go through a divorce? But then I realized, you know what? It happens, and life happens, and it's an experience, and it teaches you to, once again, what path are you going to take?
Yeah.
And so,
I can tell how profound that was just by watching your face and seeing it light up. I've actually heard of the Mighty Oaks program before. I had a client who had gone through it, and I've heard very, very positive things about it. So it's refreshing to be reminded of just how wonderful a program that is. And
yes.
I love you said too, it was like you got there and then there's something clicks, the light bulb goes off, and then you drove away, but the old Marie stayed back there. And I think it's really important too, is it doesn't mean that you're not going to have highs and lows still going forward. But what it means is that decision, it was like you were walking one path, you got to the crossroads and you said, okay, no more on this side, I'm going this way. And then that Marie who was walking before, she stayed back there. The new Marie, going back to this new chapter, this new beginning, this new path forward, she's going to go through ups and downs like all of us are. She's
Yes.
going to have her highs and lows, but she's never going to go as low as old Marie did.
Oh,
Because
no.
that was a commitment you made, a decision you made. I absolutely love that. Do you feel, Marie, that there's been, if there's one thing that you could say has been the most helpful for you on this journey, what's been that one thing?
It's two, my
Two.
son and my daughter.
That's awesome.
They are the ones that have, it's funny though, because you're like, how can you depend on your children to get you through this? It's not that I depend on them, is that, like you said earlier, they need to see how strong you are.
Yes.
Because if they don't see that you're strong, then they're going to feel like they need to take care of mom. And my children should not have to take care of me. I should be the one taking care of them. I tell them, when I'm old and wrinkly, you're going to have to take care of me. But, you know, it's just one of those things where they have been my strength, because I want them to know that everything's going to be okay. And it will. And for, you know, people would say, you know, the kids are going to be okay. And at first I was like, how can they be okay? You know, when the kids are asking questions like, why did he have to leave, or what happened? And obviously a lot of the times you don't want to tell the kids exactly what happened, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I want them to know that whatever it is, like I said earlier, whatever it is that you're going through in life, you're going to get through it. It's going to be hard. Oh my gosh, it is going to be difficult, and it is difficult, but you will survive, you know. And they have been what have gotten me through this. And I'm, you know, if it wasn't for my children, I probably wouldn't have taken the path that I've taken. I'd probably be miserable, you know, and wondering, you know, what my life is going to be like. But I think with my children, my future is, I see a bright future, you know. And
Awesome. So important for people to find that resource out there. And because there's always a resource, and we have to decide. I was listening to a guy, Eric Thomas, earlier today, who I've followed for several years now, and one of his trademark expressions is, you have to, when you want to succeed as badly as you want to breathe. And he uses that as an example, because he was saying, you know, the thing is we all say we want this, we want that, but if you go a few minutes without air, all of a sudden it puts life into perspective, it puts into context. And some of us, we forget that there's going to be things out there that are more, that have a pull over us more than the pain does, more than the emotion of loss. And if we make it a point to seek out that one thing that is greater than that pain, and we focus on it, it can be such a amazing lifeline. It can be, and it can be a bright light that shines in a very dark place. And if you follow that light, it will lead you out of it. So I am so glad you said that. Just to wrap up, Marie, because I want to be respectful of your time here. If you could give one piece of advice to everybody listening and watching about how to, move forward, how to heal, what would that one piece of advice be?
It's funny that you say that, because I remember at the beginning people were telling me, you will get through this too shall pass. And when they would say that, I know it sounds bad, I wanted to slap them. I was like, how can you say this too shall pass? But you know what? They were right. If anybody is going through this, whether it's a loss of death or a relationship, you will. It will take some time, but you will get through it. And you said earlier, I'm not 100% there, and I don't think I'll ever be 100%. But just think about it. Like, life doesn't end just because a relationship ended. There is life after this, and even in death, there is life after that. You're gonna grieve, and you're gonna go through your ups and downs. And right now, obviously, with me and my situation, it's a relationship. And just stay strong.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Don't give up hope. If you feel like I felt in regards to I'm not gonna get through this, I'm gonna, I can't do it. Yes, you can. It's very possible. And it might take longer than a year or 2 years or a couple months. Like I said, back in February, I was like, there's no way I can get through this. And people are like, you're going to be fine. No, I can't. I kept doubting myself. And where I'm at right now, I feel good and I'm happy. So reach out to someone, and I think what has helped me as well is finding that support. I have found amazing people that I never even thought that they cared about me that much.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes we distance ourselves from those that love us. And so just reach out to people. It really helps to talk about it. Don't hold things in. And I think the most important is love yourself.
Yes.
Find your worth. And we are all worth a lot, and just finding who you are, and stay strong. And it all just comes down to that. Be happy. We
Yes.
all be grateful every morning that you wake up, and
Yes.
just take it one day at a time. Because I think we overthink. We're like, okay, well, what's my future going to be? Don't think about that right now. Just take it one day at a time, and just know that you are loved, and know that if there is someone, that there will be someone out there for you, and so that's the advice that I could give people. Just don't give up, and don't give up hope, and just find that joy. And I know that there's sometimes, for me, it was, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Who was I? And where I'm at right now is like, oh, that's who I am. I'm this happy person, and I love life, and so just give it all you got. Don't give up, and reach out to people.
Yeah. Something I love about what you said there, and just in observing and listening to you now, I think almost all of us, whether it's the end of a relationship, the death of a loved one, we will get the advice, it takes time, this too shall pass, you'll get through this. And one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is they take that literally and they think, okay, well, I just got to wait it out. And they're not proactive about it. They're not doing things to deliberately work through it or help it pass. And so then time goes on and it gets compiled, right? And what I'm hearing from you is the reason you've been able to move through it and do what you've done is you've been so proactive about working through it, the process of it, to allowing it to pass. You haven't been, doesn't mean you haven't sat there and had days where you don't want to get out of bed and you got snot caked up to your eyes because of tears and you can't go anywhere because your eyes are so puffed up.
Or hiding in the bathroom because you don't want your kids to hear you cry.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, yeah. It's amazing how creative we get with trying to muffle acoustics and stuff with that.
Yes.
But you've been proactive about it, and that's such an awesome thing. And Maria, I'm so grateful that you've taken the time to be here to share. You're absolutely awesome. I love your spirit. I love your message, and I'm really grateful that we were able to get this to work. And thank you. I'm looking forward to extraordinary things and lots of love, happiness, and joy for you going forward.
Thank you so much for having me, Jesse.
You bet. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Oh, real quick before we say goodbye to everyone, if this has been helpful for you, please leave a comment. Also, if you have a story you'd like to share for future episodes of Moving Forward Moments, please leave a comment, let me know. And thanks for listening. We appreciate you. You've been listening to Healing from Loss, the podcast. If you found value in this, please subscribe, rate, and review it on whatever platform you're listening to it on. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to leave a comment and share this with someone who can benefit from it. Until next time, carpe diem. Live this moment in honor of your loved ones.